All right, ready for this. Today we're going on a deep dive that's going to really mess with your sense of scale a little bit. We're going to be talking about population comparisons.
Yeah.
And you know the kind that make you just stop and you're like, wait, that many people live there?
It's really wild how you can kind of just go about your life with these mental maps of like how the world works, and then one little comparison just throws everything off.
It's so true. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We've got research and data that compares U.S. states to entire countries. You will not believe some of these pairings. Like, for example, did you know that California, at 39 million people, actually outnumbers Canada?
It's a really fascinating comparison. I think it highlights the power of population density as an economic engine. California, just by having that concentration of people in a smaller area, becomes this like hub for all these industries, tech, entertainment, all that, and it creates this kind of self-reinforcing cycle. More people attract more investment, more talent, resources, and then that draws in even more people.
So it's not just about the numbers, right? It's about all this energy and potential that comes with having all these people clustered together.
Exactly. It makes you think about like the impact on things like innovation and cultural influence. Like a densely populated area like California, constantly generating new ideas, trends, new businesses. It's like a petri dish of human activity.
I like that, a petri dish. Okay, that makes sense. But then you've got Texas. With 30 million residents, that's practically a match for Australia. Now, that one to me seems a little counterintuitive because we think of Australia as this massive continent.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's where the difference in population distribution really comes in. So, Texas might have its bustling cities like Dallas and Houston, but Australia's population is much more spread out, which has huge implications for things like their infrastructure needs, how they manage resources, and even their political landscape.
I had never even thought about the political side of things. Is it easier to govern a concentrated population versus one that's kind of scattered all over this huge area?
Well, it definitely presents a lot of different challenges for sure. And it's a really great example of how these comparisons can force us to rethink things like governance, resource allocation, even quality of life, really. Okay, interesting. So we've got density, we've got distribution. What else should we be thinking about as we go through these comparisons?
Well, don't forget about the economic base of a region. Like, let's take New York State, for example. 19 million people, almost identical in population to Chile.
Wow, see, now that's another one that just seems so random to me. What could those two places possibly have in common?
More than you'd think, actually. Both New York and Chile have historically been shaped by waves of immigration, which has contributed a lot to their current population sizes. And then economically, both have diverse industries, but they're heavily reliant on specific sectors. So you've got finance and trade for New York, mining and agriculture for Chile. So even though they're on opposite sides of the world, they've kind of had these parallel paths in terms of how their populations and economies have developed.
That's really fascinating. Okay, I'm ready for another one. Hit me with it.
All right, how about this? Wyoming, known for its wide open spaces, less than 600,000 residents, has a smaller population than Luxembourg, one of Europe's smallest countries.
See, now that just feels like a trick question. Wyoming is huge. How can it have fewer people than this tiny European country?
It's a good point. And it's where understanding the historical development of these regions becomes crucial. So Wyoming's economy has traditionally revolved around resource extraction, things like mining, agriculture, which don't necessarily require a huge concentrated workforce. Luxembourg, on the other hand, developed this really robust financial sector, attracting a skilled workforce, leading to a much higher population density. So even though they're vastly different in size, location, they both make sense when you consider like the economic activities that have shaped their population growth. Okay, I'm starting to see how these aren't just fun facts. They really make you think about like all the forces that shape entire societies.
Exactly. And we're just getting started. Wait till you hear about Florida's population compared to...
Hold on, let's save that one. I need a minute to process all this.
It's pretty fascinating, right?
Yeah.
How just looking at these simple population comparisons can kind of spark all these questions about economics, geography, even history.
Yeah, it's true. It's like each one opens up this whole new rabbit hole to explore. And speaking of rabbit holes, you mentioned something earlier about Florida. I think I'm ready for that mind bender now.
Okay, you asked for it? Get this. Florida, the Sunshine State, with its 22 million residents, has a larger population than the Netherlands and Belgium combined.
Whoa, okay. That one really throws me for a loop. Two entire European countries. I mean, they're small, but still.
It's wild, right? Florida is really an interesting case study, I think, because it's kind of this confluence of several factors. So you've got the warm climate, that desirable lifestyle, which makes it a super popular destination for retirees and people who are just looking for a more relaxed pace of life.
Right, and all those people moving there, wouldn't that also drive up the demand for housing and services?
Yeah,
Which leads to more job opportunities, and that attracts even more people to move there.
exactly. It's like the snowball effect. Plus, you have to factor in things like the relatively affordable housing, especially compared to other coastal states.
Yeah.
And then the business-friendly environment that attracts a lot of entrepreneurs and companies. All of these things kind of contribute to Florida's population boom.
Wow. It's like this perfect storm of factors creating this population powerhouse. Okay, so as we're looking at all these different comparisons, what are some of the big takeaways here? Like, why should someone even care about this kind of stuff?
That's a great question. I think it really highlights the interconnectedness of our world. We often think about countries and states as these separate entities, but population trends really reveal how interconnected they really are. You've got migration patterns, economic forces, even cultural trends are constantly shaping population dynamics. And understanding those dynamics can help us make sense of broader global trends, I think.
It's like we're zooming out and seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And realizing that these seemingly random population facts are actually clues to understanding how the world works.
Exactly. It makes you think about the future too, right? Will these trends continue? How will population growth impact different regions in the coming years?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, will California's population continue to just explode? Or will we see a shift towards other states? And what about those other countries we talked about? Will they experience similar population booms? Or are they facing different challenges?
Those are some really good questions. And honestly, there's no easy answer. But that's what makes this topic so intriguing. It's not just about the numbers themselves. It's about what those numbers tell us about these complex forces that are shaping our world.
Okay, so we've talked about the economic factors, the geographic influences, the historical context. What about the human element? How do all of these population dynamics affect people's lives on a personal level?
That's a really crucial aspect to consider, like population density. That can influence everything from housing costs to access to services, even the overall pace and feel of a place. Living in a densely populated area like New York City is a vastly different experience than living in a sparsely populated state like Wyoming.
And it's not just about the physical environment either, right?
Yeah.
Population density can also impact social interactions, cultural diversity, even access to opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. It's about the fabric of society, how people live, how they work, how they interact with each other.
So even though we've been kind of having fun with these, population comparisons, there's a much deeper layer here that affects people's daily lives. And it shapes the future of entire societies.
Exactly. It's a really good reminder that statistics aren't just these abstract figures. They represent real people, real communities, real challenges that we need to understand and address.
Yeah, I love that. It's about connecting the dots between the numbers and the human stories behind them. It's funny, we talk about population as all these abstract numbers, but this deep dive has really brought it home for me. These are real people living real lives, shaped by, the places they call home.
Yeah, it's true. It's easy to get kind of lost in the statistics.
Yeah.
But ultimately, population trends are a reflection of human choices, aspirations, circumstances.
Totally. And speaking of those wait really moments, let's do a quick little trip down memory lane, revisit some of the most surprising pairings we've uncovered today, starting with California and Canada. It's still mind-boggling to me that a single U.S. state has more people than our neighbor to the north.
I know it really puts it in perspective, doesn't it? It underscores the power of population density and its ability to create these economic and cultural hubs. California, with its concentration of people, resources, industries, has become a global force.
And then there's Texas, holding its own against Australia in the population showdown. Makes you wonder if everything really is bigger in Texas, even the population.
Well, it's not just about size, right? It's about how that population is distributed. Texas, with its sprawling urban centers, offers a different kind of lifestyle compared to Australia, where the population is more spread out across this vast continent.
Right. And that difference in distribution probably has all these ripple effects on everything, from infrastructure needs to environmental concerns.
Oh, for sure. Population density impacts so many things. How societies manage their resources, how they plan for growth, how they address challenges like transportation, housing, sustainability.
Okay. And how about New York and Chile? Two completely different continents, yet strikingly similar population numbers.
It's pretty wild, right? Highlights the interconnectedness of global migration patterns and economic forces. Both New York and Chile have historically been shaped by waves of immigration, which have contributed to their populations today.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that people have always moved around in search of better opportunities, and those movements have a lasting impact on the places they settle. And speaking of unexpected pairings, who could forget Wyoming and Luxembourg, the vast open spaces of the American West,
Right.
versus this tiny European nation?
I know. It really challenges our assumptions about size and population. Wyoming's sparsely populated landscape reflects its economic reliance on resource extraction, while Luxembourg's financial sector has fueled a much denser population.
So even though they seem worlds apart, repopulation stories are rooted in these unique economic histories. All right, last but not least, let's revisit the Sunshine State. Florida, with its population exceeding the combined might of the Netherlands and Belgium, has officially blown my mind.
Yeah, Florida's population boom is a fascinating case study. How things like climate, lifestyle, economic opportunity can all converge to create a population magnet.
It's like they cracked the code
Yeah.
for attracting people from all walks of life. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of population surprises, what's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
That's a good question. I think the key message is that population is more than just a number. It's a dynamic force that shapes economies, cultures, the very fabric of our societies. By understanding population trends, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces shaping our world, both today and in the future.
Well said. And to our listeners out there, I encourage you to keep exploring these comparisons, challenge your assumptions, dig deeper into the data, and see what other surprising connections you can uncover. Because as we've seen today, sometimes the most unexpected pairings can reveal the most profound insights. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.
Keep those minds curious and those perspectives shifting.